Hello everyone. So this is probably the last lecture of this semester. So today we will start with risk management. So at first let's talk about risk. What is a risk? Risk is an expectation of loss. It's a potential problem that may or may not occur in the future. So this is what risk is. So it's happens or it's generally caused due to lack of information, control, or time. So this is risk. But what is software risk? Software risk actually it's a possibility of suffering from loss in software development process. That's called software risk. So now when we are talking about risk or loss, so loss can be anything in software development, right? uh, Increase in production cost, that's also a kind of risk. Or you can develop a poor quality software at the end, so that's another kind of loss. You could also not be able to complete the project on time, so that's also another kind of loss. So these kinds of loss are associated with actually software risk. Okay, so software risk exists because the future is uncertain and there may be many known and unknown things that cannot be incorporated in the project plan. So that's why risk could happen, right? In software development, risk could happen. So how you can handle that risk is called risk management. And there are 4 steps in risk management. So now we will discuss about this risk management. So the first step is identifying risk factors. So before talking about this, let's talk about different kinds of risk first, and then you can easily understand how you can identify the risk factors. Okay, so a project manager has to deal with different kinds of risk. So we can categorize those in 3 categories. So the first one is known risk, the second one is known unknown risk, and the third one is unknown risk. So if we first talk about known risk, those risks are software risks that are actually facts known to the team as well as to the entire project. So suppose I can give you an example. Suppose not having enough member. Okay, so if you don't have enough members or developers in your project, this can delay the project delivery. So you already know about this risk, right? So such risks are described and included in the project management plan, and these are called known risk. Okay. So now let's talk about known unknown risk. So known unknown risk are those risks that the project team is aware of, but it is unknown that such risk exists in the project or not. So that's called known unknown risk. For example, if the communication with the client is not of good level, then it is not possible to capture the requirement properly. So this is a fact known to the project team. However, whether the client has communicated all the information properly or not is unknown to the project. So these kinds of problem is called known unknown risk. So now there is one more risk, that is unknown risk. So you can easily understand this. Unknown risk are those kind of risk about which the organization has no idea. Okay, such risks are generally related to technology. Suppose you are working on a technology or tools that you have no idea. Okay, but your client want you to work that way, so it exposes you to absolutely unknown risk. So now as you easily know the categories of risk, so you can easily identify the risk factors. Like if you think about known risk, you can easily identify what could be the known risk. Like personal shortfall, this is a known risk, right? then unrealistic schedule or budget, that's also a known risk. And if you think about a known unknown risk, so if you want to list what could be the known unknown list, so that could be volatile requirements, that could be a known unknown risk. Okay, so if you think about this category, you can easily identify the risk factors. Okay, so this is the first step in risk management. You have to identify the risk factors. So now, after categorizing or after identifying the risk, the level or likelihood, or you can say percentage and impact of the risk should be analyzed. Okay, so you have to determine the risk exposure, that's called risk exposure, the probability or the possibility of risk, and also what could be the impact of the risk, that is called risk exposure. So you have to determine the risk exposure. So for each risk, you have to determine the probability P that will actually occur, and the effect E that will have on the project. So the probability multiplied with the effect is called risk exposure. So you, for each risk, you have to identify the risk exposure for each risk. Okay, so that's the second step. So now, after you are done with risk exposure, you have to develop strategies to mitigate the risk. So that's our third step in risk management. So there are three general strategies to mitigate risk. So the three general strategies are avoid, transfer, and accept. These are three main kind of strategies. So if we talk about avoid, so you can easily understand what is avoid. Avoid means you have to take precautions so the risk does not occur. Okay, so how you can do that? You can adjust project scope, you can reschedule or constrain to minimize the effect of the risk. So that's one strategy, that is avoid. So the next one is transfer. So transfer by finding an alternate solution. So that means you can implement an organizational shift in accountability, responsibility, or authority to other stakeholders that will accept the risk. So that's another strategy, that is called transfer. And the last one is accept. So you have to acknowledge that a risk is impacting the project. Okay, so you can make an explicit decision to accept the risk without any change to the project. So that's one more strategy to mitigate the risk. So but here in accept, project management approval is mandatory here. Okay, as you are making an explicit decision to accept the risk without any change to the project, you have to take project management approval here. So these are three main categories or main strategies: avoid, transfer, and accept. So there are two more actually. I did not mention those in the slide. So the two additional strategy is control. So that means take action to minimize the impact or reduce the intensification of the risk. So that's one more strategy, control. And there is another one which is the simplest one. So the other one is continuing monitoring. Okay, so you have to continue monitoring. So it's suitable for low impact risk, but for high impact risk it's not suitable. Okay, so you will just monitor the project environment for potentially increasing impact of the risk. Okay, so these are actually 5 strategies, but mentioning 3 is fine. Avoid, transfer, and accept is fine. So the last step is handle risk. So you have to monitor the risk factors and apply mitigation strategies as necessary. So that's the 4th step. So these are the four risk management step. At first you have to identify the risk, then you have to determine for each risk you have to determine risk exposure, and then For those risk exposure with the highest risk exposure, if it's above the threshold, then you have to apply the mitigation strategies. So I have mentioned here 3 mitigation strategies: avoid, transfer, and accept. You can add 2 more, that is control and continue monitoring. And then the fourth step is you have to handle the risk. That means according to, you have to monitor, and according to the risk you will apply the mitigation strategies. So this is how we can do risk management. So now we will discuss about project planning techniques. So project planning techniques actually make managing projects easier and more effective. So there are many project management techniques to choose from. Here are 3 of the best that every project manager should know in order to control their project. So the first one is work breakdown structure, that is called WBS. So a work breakdown structure is a way to organize the work into smaller, more manageable pieces. So WBS is a graphic representation of every task in the project. At the top is the final product with a line that goes down the page to a box or boxes that represent the larger task which lead to the completed project. Each of these boxes, larger boxes, are then attached with lines that go under it to smaller tasks. So this task does not show duration or precedence relation. So this is how WBS represents. So this is a graphical representation. The top level represent the completed project or completed product, and the second level, it depends on those larger portions, by combining which you get the completed product. And each level down, if you go to the deep down to each level, you can break it into more smaller subparts or subtask. So actually here we are applying divide and conquer approach. We are dividing our work and we are conquering a small subtask first, and then we are combining it, and after merging each of these we are getting the completed project. So this is actually a divide and conquer approach. And here in the graphical representation, it will not show any duration or precedence relation, like task A must be finished before task B. There is no such kinds of relation. We can work concurrently in each of these sub phases. Okay, so this is how WBS work. This is actually work breakdown structure. So now we will talk about Gantt charts. So Gantt charts is another visual project management technique. So it's also graphical or visual. Okay, so but this one has even more applications for a project manager. So if we just simply say Gantt chart is actually a visual view of task scheduled over time. So here time will be represented. So Gantt charts are used for planning projects of all sizes, and they are a very useful way of showing what work is scheduled to be done on a specific day. So these help you to view the start and end dates of a project in one simple view. So on a Gantt chart, you can easily see the start date of the project, what the project tasks are, who is working on each project, when the task start and finish, and how long each task will take. And also you can see how the task group together, you can see any overlap, or you can see if there is any link with each other, and you can also see the finish date of the project. So you can easily understand this is more helpful for the project managers. Project managers can easily see the schedule over here, the duration, the overlap, the links between them, so it's more visible. Okay, so that's why it's most used. So you can develop or you can draw a Gantt chart in Excel. I think we all are familiar with Excel. So you can draw a Gantt chart by using Excel software, and there are other more softwares online. Those are available for project managers to draw their Gantt chart. So you can just type Gantt chart software in Google, and you will get a list of Gantt chart softwares. Okay, so the next one is part chart. So part is actually an acronym that stands for program evaluation and review techniques. So part, program evaluation and review techniques. So it's a project management technique to help with time estimates. Estimating time for a project is not an easy task, right? We understand that there are a lot of factors to take in, many of which are complex and hard to accurately calculate. So part has been used by project managers to make time estimates that are more accurate. It was first developed by the US Navy in the 1950s for a project to develop missiles, which involved an army of contractors. So because of part, the project was completed 2 years ahead of schedule. So you can understand how helpful is using part. Okay, so now the question is, how does part work? It manages probabilities by using many simple statistical methods. Part breaks down tasks into detailed activities by using the WBS that we have discussed in the previous slide. Then adds these to Gantt chart. We have also discussed Gantt chart. Okay, so these, then after using WBS, then adds these to Gantt chart to identify those activities that are interdependent. We already know that from Gantt chart you can easily see the links between different tasks. Okay, so at first they break down their work, and then they use Gantt chart to see the interdependence, okay, between the activities. So they identify those activities that are interdependent. So in part you use both of them, WBS and Gantt chart. From that data you create an illustrative map of the network of activities and their interdependencies. On the map, a node represents an event, and the activities are represented by arrows drawn from one event to another based on its order. So from this, the earliest time, the latest time for each activity is figured out, as well as the slack time for each activity. So it shows task duration, and it also shows precedence relation. Okay, so this is what part chart is. It's actually used both of the concept of Gantt charts and also the concept of WBS. In part chart they combine both techniques, and they get the benefits of the both techniques. And after using both techniques, they create a map. In that map they show the network of activities and their interdependencies, and on the map each of these nodes represent an event, and the activities are represented by the arrows. Here is a figure, you can see that. Okay, and each node you can see they also show the time. Okay, with the node name they also represent the time duration. So it's showing the task duration, it's showing the precedence relation and everything. Okay, but it does not show the task decomposition. So Gantt chart and part chart, both of them are most helpful for project managers to plan their project. Okay, so now we will talk about a maturity model, that is capability maturity model for software. So the capability maturity model is a methodology used to develop and refine an organization's software development process. The model describes a 5-level evolutionary path of increasingly organized and systematically more mature processes. So there are 5 levels: level 1 to 5. This is the capability maturity model. So at level 1, that means at the initial level, processes are disorganized here. Processes are even chaotic here. Success is likely to depend on individual efforts, and success is not considered to be repeatable here. And the reason behind this is that the process would not be sufficiently defined and documented at this level to allow them to be replicated. So at the initial level, the process are disorganized, chaotic, and the success is not repeatable. And now we move to the repeatable level. Okay, so at the repeatable level, basic project management techniques are established and success could be repeated here. At the first level, we cannot repeat the success, but at the level 2 we can repeat the success could be repeated here. And the reason behind this is that the requisite process would have been made established, defined, and documented. So that's why we can repeat the success here. And then we will move to the defined level. At the defined level, an organization has developed its own standard software process through greater attention to documentation, standardization, and integration. Okay, and then we move to the managed level, level 4. At the managed level, an organization monitors and controls its own processes through data collection and analysis. So analysis is an important step here in managed level. And then we move to optimizing level, level 5. At the optimizing level, processes are constantly being improved through monitoring feedback from current processes and introducing innovative process to better serve the organization particular needs. So this is optimization level 5. So this is our capability maturity model.